Dead Bart. Excerpt. Dead Bart is a creepypasta story about a lost episode of The Simpsons that is rumored to exist. When they began airing The Simpsons TV show, Fox had a strange way of numbering each episode. There are a few unexplained gaps in the numbering, and the TV station refuses to explain why. The reason for this is that there was a lost episode in Season 1. From what has been pieced together, the episode's production number was 7G06. The title was Dead Bart. Finding any details about this missing episode is extremely difficult. None of the staff who were working on the show at the time will discuss it. The lost episode was written entirely by Matt Groening, the creator of the TV show. During production of the first season, they say that Matt Groening began to act very strangely. He became unusually quiet, nervous, and withdrawn. The episode labeled 7G06, Moaning Lisa, was made later and given Dead Bart's production code to hide the latter's existence. When anyone involved with The Simpsons was asked about this, they suddenly became extremely angry and refused to talk about it. They even went so far as to forbid anyone from communicating directly with Matt Groening. In fact, when the show's producer was giving a presentation at an event, someone in the crowd asked about the rumored lost episode. The producer immediately walked off the stage, ending the question and answer session halfway through. A few years ago, I was attending a fan convention where Matt Groening was invited to speak to the crowd. After the event, I managed to follow him backstage and had a chance to talk to him alone, just as he was about to leave. When I happened to mention the lost episode, all color suddenly drained from his face and he began to tremble. I pressed him for details, but he sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He quickly grabbed a piece of paper, scribbled something on it, and thrust it into my hand. After begging me never to mention the lost episode again, he rushed out of the building. Looking down at the piece of paper I was holding, I noticed that it had a website address on it. When I got home, I typed the URL into my browser, and it brought me to a website that was completely black, except for a single link. As soon as I clicked on the link, a video file started downloading. When I clicked play, I realized it was an episode of The Simpsons. The title of the file was Dead Bart. The episode started off like any other, but the quality of the animation was noticeably poor. The first half of the episode was pretty normal, but the way the characters behaved was very odd. Homer seemed much more angry than usual. Marge just looked incredibly depressed, and Lisa seemed stressed out and nervous. The most disturbing thing was that Bart seemed to be seething with anger and hatred for his parents. The plot of the episode involved the Simpsons going on a holiday. The plane was taking off and Bart was fooling around, as usual. However, when the plane was about 50 feet off the ground, Bart broke a window and was suddenly sucked out. The next scene showed Bart's dead body lying on the airport runway. He was barely recognizable, and the animation showed an almost photorealistic drawing of his twisted and mangled corpse. The second half began with Homer, Marge, and Lisa sitting around their kitchen table, sobbing and crying. As the crying went on, it became more pained and more realistic. The animation started to decay, and you could hear strange murmuring in the background. The characters could barely be made out. The screen was stretching and blurring, making them look like deformed shadows with random bright colors thrown on them. There were also faces looking in the window, flashing in and out, so you were never sure what they looked like. This unnerving sobbing and crying went on for almost the entire second half. Towards the end, a title card appeared, reading 1 year later. Homer, Marge, and Lisa were still sitting at the kitchen table, but now they were shockingly thin. They looked almost like skeletons, and there was no sign of Maggie or the pets. Homer, Marge, and Lisa decided to visit Bart's grave. Springfield was completely deserted, and as they walked towards the cemetery, all of the other houses seemed to be crumbling and abandoned. When they finally reached the grave, Bart's body was just lying in front of his tombstone, looking just like it did before. The Simpsons just stood there, staring at Bart's bloody corpse. The camera zoomed in on Homer's face, and his mouth began moving, but you couldn't hear what he was saying. The camera zoomed out again, and the episode came to a close. There were no credits. The camera just lingered on the tombstones in the background. Each tombstone had the name of every Simpsons guest star engraved on it. Some that no one had heard of in 1989, some that haven't even been on the show yet. All of the names had a date of death engraved next to them. For guests who have died since then, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison, the dates of their death were exactly correct. The final image was of the entire Simpson family sitting on their couch, their bodies mangled and lifeless. All of this was drawn in the same hyperrealistic style that had been used on Bart's corpse. When the episode finished, a thought suddenly occurred to me. You could try to use the tombstones to predict the death of people who have guest starred on The Simpsons who are still alive. However, there was something very odd about most of the guest stars who haven't died yet. All of their deaths are listed as the same date.